Everybody, I'm Greg Stanley. I'm here with Wes Warren. You know, every day that goes by, the media is filled with articles and commentary about inflation. In fact, now we're seeing some offset to that. The media doesn't know whether to talk about inflation or recession. They go back and forth as the great boogeyman. You know, we've lived through this. I certainly have. In the 80s, I was in the seminar business. I was talking about money and all of that. Let me tell you how this kind of works. Everybody is saying that, well, at first they said inflation would go away in a few months.
Right.
Now they're starting to say maybe something has to be done. And it becomes clear they don't know what to do. Give people money and drive up inflation worse. They're talking about giving inflation handouts like they did COVID, or raising interest rates to cool inflation, which also kills the economy. In other words, the housing market, all of those things are affected by it. So stage one is where inflation is on the radar. Stage two is where it looks like it's going to continue. We're going to still have this inflation isn't going away tomorrow. Stage three is where people panic because it looks like there's no end in sight to how high it will go. If we keep posting records, you're going to see some really strange behavior. People embracing strange investments, people getting really wonky about real estate. You're already seeing it. Major corporations are filling the portfolios with residential real estate of all things. So this is a cycle we have lived through. Number one, we've learned it takes years for inflation to catch up and get you. This idea of blaming the last administration or blaming this administration, not necessarily true. It can go back farther. Number two, the idea that it's here to stay, that probably is for the time being. And number three, that it's going to go crazy. A lot of people became gurus of crisis. They were recommending gold and so forth. And I mean, the most extreme measures to offset inflation, which were very risky by themselves if inflation didn't hit and if their investment didn't rise. So Wes, having been through this a time or two at Whitehall, maybe you could comment on how it affects us in our practice and what we can do. We're already seeing our staff costs go up.
Yeah, that's so the first way it affects the practice is staff costs. And we saw that maybe a year and a half right after COVID. Everybody was asking for more money. It wasn't equal for each department. Obviously in hygiene, I believe that inflation rate moved up faster than any other department. But that's where it first starts, is just everybody asking and wanting more money. That affects all markets.
You know, it seemed like before they really got big on beating the inflation drum, COVID already was affecting staff costs. People going home to work from home and getting another job where they could work from home, cleaning our offices out of people that knew or had the training. In other words, it's kind of a double whammy.
Yeah, the reason why inflation is here partly is that a lot of people left the workforce, just plain left. A lot of people were on the dole, meaning it was cheaper to stay home. I mean, you made more money by staying home and collecting on insurance for a year and a half. So you had a massive change in the labor market, which, you know, when 50 doctors are fighting over 2 hygienists, guess what? That hygienist gets to name what they're going to work for. And that's what we saw. I mean, we literally saw that. That's the first effects on practice. Is anybody you're wanting to hire wants more money. And then obviously comes your own team asking for more money. And hey, you know, I need more money. I could get a job somewhere else making more money.
Chain reaction.
Yeah. And then we saw this turnover effect in practices where people were leaving for more money because doctors weren't keeping up internally. And so it was just mass chaos really inside practices with the labor market. Probably not too different with labs and suppliers. they have the same problems, and so they're going to raise their fees, and you're seeing that already play on through. And it kind of leaves doctors wondering what to do because we're at this stage right now. I believe that that's kind of where we're at. We got to somehow make up the ground. The problem is insurance is not going to do it. They're going to be last. That's the last phase, if you will, of the impact of inflation on your practice, is when insurance finally catches up. But right now, you've got to figure out a way to not let this eat you alive with your overhead and your staff costs.
So this really comes down to managing overhead, number one, making sure that doesn't get out of control. And number two, raising fees in a way that doesn't cause you to lose your market following.
I would say, yeah, I'd like to point something out. Because you feel like I got to act, I got to do something, you can do something that's detrimental. You can do something that's bad as a strategy, and that's probably what we should talk about. Is everybody's going to be like, I got to do something. I got to raise my fees. I got to start selling this or selling that. And you get a little, you use the term wonky. Yeah, you get a little wonky yourself internally with your practice. And that's the danger. And that's the thing we want you guys to understand. There's about 4 or 5 different things that would be dangerous to embrace.
Well, somebody comes up and slaps you with higher costs. The temptation is just to slap back, when in truth, patients are separate from what goes on in our practice. What we're having to pay for staff and everything, it's a separate thing, because patients and staff are subject to competition. They can go somewhere else. Well, we're solving that by raising staff's pay. But what about patients? If we raise their costs, did other doctors raise their fees? Are we going to be the first one in the pool? Are we going to be the only ones?
That's the thing to worry about. And then how fast do you raise them is the other thing. So first, Greg, we've talked about this before, about how they should raise their fees and how businesses have tended to try to raise their fees over the years. Can you comment on your philosophy there on raising fees and what people should watch out for and the mistakes?
Well, if you're in a competitive market, certain things like men's clothing is something I've read a lot about. The same brand of clothing is available online in 2, 3, 4 different department stores. How can they compete if everybody sells the same thing? People's minds say dentistry, it's all the same. There's 50 dentists in my area, they're all selling the same thing. The rules haven't changed. Because somebody slapped you with higher staff costs doesn't mean you get to slap back at your patients. You're still under the limitations of making your comparables comparable, meaning if the cost of x-ray cleaning and so forth is a certain amount per, a lot of offers are at 49, 59, 69. That hasn't changed. You still have to be competitive there. Now, once people come in, you have to become the master of managing and changing their expectations, showing them what they need, principles of urgency. All of those things come into play, and inflation and higher prices, those thoughts go out the window to patients.
So by and large, in this area, if I'm hearing you correctly, you've got to watch out the comparables, which would be cleanings, definitely, x-rays, doctor exams, and maybe crowns, depends on the area.
It's a gray area.
You can't be aggressive there. You have to watch out. And what you've got to do is keep those comparable. You can raise the other things. And so we talked maybe like a buildup. You can raise the fee of that. You can raise things that are less comparable.
Think of the patient being in a certain place. They're at their home, they're on the internet, they're shopping for an offer or whatever. Okay, now they're in your chair. You see the difference? The one, you have to be incredibly sensitive to how you impact them. The other, you have the chance to manage their expectations, their urgency, all of that. once they realize they're going to have to get it done, do they really want to leave your chair and go to other chairs of other doctors and keep shopping? That works in your favor. So
Right.
this thought of you having to pay more to staff and you can just raise your fees, some of the principles still apply, I'm afraid. Now, let's talk about one that you said some real important things about hygiene. Hygiene has gone up as far as our cost for paying a hygienist has gone up so fast, so far, so big. A lot of doctors are almost stunned, like a deer in the headlights. Like, what do I do? Do I cut them loose to try to give everybody a deep cleaning and make $1,200 and turn this into a huge win? Well, that had its problems, or you'd have already done that. It runs off, you lose your market. Number two, can I raise my prices on hygiene enough to offset what I'm paying? The answer is you'd probably survive that. If hygiene went up $10 or $15 an hour for you, you'll
Yeah.
probably survive $10 or $15 of straight hygiene costs. I'm sure this is one where every dentist in your community is probably thinking this way. Now, on the way in, the initial offer, that will still stay competitive. But once they're your patient and they're coming back for regular cleanings, yeah, you're going to probably be up $10 or $15.
Okay.
So, and by the way, if you do this, know that this win for you goes to the hygienist. It's one for the hygienist. You're taking one for the team.
Right, right. The next thing a lot of doctors naturally think about, so that's raising fees. You got to be careful there. The next thing doctors think about to fight against inflation internally is, selling higher end procedures. You talked about perio, LANAP. There's all kinds of different things that doctors get excited about. And then in these times, they get excited about it. Can you comment on the dangers of getting too excited about procedures and in the practice?
Okay, you can get excited about something, but you remember I talked about the patient at home and the patient in the chair being different.
Uh-huh.
You've got to be able to draw people from the marketplace that want your procedure. Somebody that's looking for TMJ or whatever. Our doctors that have marketed for that successfully are doing quite well, where they say, here's an offer on something, you want to come in and get, you're looking for TMJ, you got jaw pain, whatever. You mentioned LANAP, maybe they've already shopped for that and you're doing that. So that's one idea, is to literally set your screen so that the holes are big enough just to catch the people you're looking for. We have not had success. In fact, it's been outright damaging to take people from home thinking they're coming in for x-rays, cleaning, and exam, and finding out, that we're pushing something they had no idea even existed in dentistry.
A sleep study or,
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
right.
Okay.
Well, it's no different than pushing large, full mouth reconstruction on somebody that came in for a cleaning. We all kind of know that probably wouldn't go down well.
Well, I saw a doctor who kept track of that. He was able to turn 1 out of 20 people who came in for some real low introductory offer into a big case in one step. The other 19 people, I think he saw him in front of his office carrying signs that said, "Don't go here,"
Right.
Another thing I want to warn people about is desperate attempts to cut overhead. For example, this is where you can hurt yourself right off the bat. Staff person quits for whatever reason, and you go, okay, good, didn't need her anyway, or so-and-so so good, she'll fill in. Yeah, she will for a while, but you'll find 2 or 3 months down the road, you are hurting directly because you're short-staffed.
Yeah, the practice will contract just enough to reflect that person that you lost.
Well, she was probably worth $25,000 to $30,000 for the practice, and you were paying her $5,000. You're going to feel that, but it's 2 or 3 months away. So you think you got away with it. Number
Definitely.
two, the one that I see most people do is turn on their marketing and destroy it. They turn against it like it's the enemy. Yeah, I'm marketing. I'm getting all these people that take so much work and not all of them buy or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just gonna turn off the marketing. I can keep that money. Well, in some cases that's true because your marketing is so bad, the results are just non-existent. Yeah, maybe it is time to go turn some of it off. But I gotta tell you, doctors now, a lot of them are winning from their pay-per-click.
Well, yeah, it's another thing that doesn't show up for months and months when you make changes in a dental office, it takes months and months for a lot of it to show up. So you can feel like you won when you really didn't.
And you'll have people on the sidelines, maybe a spouse, a sister, a brother, some friend who also knows a dentist, say, you're right, you don't need that marketing. I have a friend, he's a dentist, and it's all referrals or whatever it happens to be. And you're going to get so much bad advice that it's scary. So when
Yeah.
it comes to cutting overhead, tread lightly, check with a consultant that knows what they're doing before you go there. Maybe you'll have to before you're done.
Well, going with higher end procedures, it can be done effectively, but most people do it to the point where it damages the practice. In other words, if I were just to send out 100 doctors to go, try to do bigger cases, let's say sedation, I would tell you I'd walk back without any oversight, and 80 of them would be absolutely damaging their practice. But done correctly, it is the right approach. Getting a few higher end procedures like sedation, could be implants into the practice, but it also could be things like, Greg, it could be things like Invisalign. Adding a few more cases and pulling in another 15 grand a month can help solve this problem. It doesn't have to be a big win.
If you present it without alienating.
That's the key. That's the key. So that one's kind of an interesting one for sure. There's another one in terms of what we try to do to help practices, and that's eliminate all missed appointments. Most practices will have in hygiene at least 10% no failure rates and openings.
Or more.
And even more. Sometimes it's 20%. And getting that down below 5%, so where there's hardly any openings at all, is you're fighting the problem, the great beast of inflation. You're solving it in hygiene, picking up basically, like if you went from 10% to 0, it's like a 10% increase in your fees. It's that good. But also you get access to an extra patient that you're not seeing on a daily basis, which is a 10% increase in the restorative side.
Let's call that found money.
It's found money. And then lastly is better case acceptance just overall for the practice. We're seeing new patients in most practices, maybe 50, 60%. And we really work on the practice getting to 70, 80%. That's again found money. These are patients that weren't acting, weren't doing procedures. And when we finally get a 10 or 15% increase, it's again found money for the practice. And so those are the areas we would like people to focus on and not make some classic mistakes of being ultra aggressive with high-end procedures, ultra aggressive in raising their fees, especially in hygiene. That's kind of the things that we want to make sure our clients know not to do.
If you're going up more than 5% on your fees, unless you're strategic with these things Wes is talking about, it's likely to come back to haunt you worse than, just taking the hit. Let's talk about, some counterintuitive things. When it looks like lower overhead, higher fees could save you, sometimes it's really not there. It's not the case. Maybe on less competitive fees, we talked about that. But another one is some offices have given up on or abandoned their bonus structure, which can drive $50,000 a month or more to a practice. And yeah, you got to pay $5,000 or $8,000 in bonus. There's one, especially if you have empty chairs or an associate with empty chairs. So this idea that because somebody slapped you with higher costs, you're going to slap the patients with higher costs. Trust me, they just go down the road.
Another common one is to get out of network,
Yeah.
where the doctors just instantly think, well, I just can't afford this write-off, and they get this fixated in their head, this write-off, the write-off. I'm losing 40 grand. I'm losing 40 grand. It can be a dangerous road. A lot of people can survive it, but their practices will never grow again. You kind of lose the natural growth pattern of a practice when you get out of network if you're not careful. And you have to look at your overall strategy of the practice. If you're already full, you've got a waiting list to get into the practice that's 3 months long, and your schedule is booked out 3 or 4 weeks, and you have no plans to expand the practice. Yeah, you probably should look at maybe eliminating a couple of the lower end plans. But for the rest of you, this is a dangerous approach. If you're already struggling to keep the books filled and you're only booked out a week or so, just thinking that I'm going to win by eliminating some plans could be a dangerous approach.
Of all the things we talk about, this one probably calls for a new and better strategy to go forward. That's what Wes and I do. All you have to do, make an appointment and talk to us. And yeah, we're going to tell you that some of your thinking may be off base. We're going to tell you some of your thinking probably is right on the money. But get with us and hear what people who are seasoned in doing this have to say.
Yeah, every practice is different as far as what you should do to fight inflation. And a program like this, we can't really tell you without knowing your specific situation. Do you have associates? Are you full? How competitive is the area? All these things factor in as far as what strategy you should focus on.
We still have doctors who are trying to claw back from the pandemic loss of staff. We got all kind of situations. So get on the phone and get with us, and we'll give you a strategy that we think would win. We'll give you the details. All you got to do, all we're asking for is you leave us a Google review.
Yeah, we'll do it at no charge as long as you're willing to give us a Google review for the advice we give you.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, we would really appreciate that. So click the link and you can schedule online without talking to anybody, and we'd be glad to kind of point you in the right direction.
Thanks for listening.
Yep, thanks for listening.